Okay, Jeff Allen here. Another one of these videos on the study of linguistics and how it relates to user assistance, translation, and related fields. If you're watching this video, you need to first go back and watch my video on phonetics before you listen to this one. I explained why I grouped together phonetics and phonology in that separate video, the first one. But now I'm going to go on and I'm going to separate them out, only because some of you are more interested in the difference between the two. But you need to understand why I grouped them together in the first video. Go back and watch that one. It's not too long. So let's go now. Let's split them up. So phonetics is the study of sounds. Okay, so you can take the 120-ish sounds. I mean, I haven't looked at the most recent version of the International Phonetic Alphabet. It's over 100 sounds, and you can even write down clicks. Okay, all these different sounds made in the mouth each have a different code, the phonetic symbol to write that out, okay? And I have a friend, actually, that created one of the sounds in the phonetic alphabet, international. So, because he found a sound that did not exist anywhere else, but it exists in one language, so they had to create another symbol for it. The study of phonetics takes the study of, we're going to call these vowels, and the study of consonants. And you've got a vowel chart that looks like a mouth. Looks like this and that. And you can put all the sounds and the vowels in the mouth and say where the points of articulation are, and the places in the mouth where they are, and how that happens. Now, then you come down to the set of consonants, and the consonant chart is kind of like a table. And it's got each point of articulation. There are 2 points of articulation with the tongue to make the consonant. Okay, so each one of those sub points in the columns and the rows allows you to know if these are the types of consonants they are. And I'm not going to go into all the details because that'll take me. I did a whole series on just the learning Dutch and phonology, but. What happens? You take all these sounds, and then you can take diphthongs and triphthongs, okay? And you've got different types of, voiceless and voiced sounds, and you've got different sounds that are hard stops versus sibilants and liquids and all this stuff. So all these things these are all the study of sounds, okay? And what happens is someone will go into, the reason why this is important, because you go into a place a location where you don't know the language, okay? And you don't have another language, a bridge language, to be able to help you learn their language. So you have no way to do it. And this happens in field linguistics a lot. Field linguistics, they're linguists that go out and they go to the field, and they will listen to the line, listen, and write down in phonetics what they get down to. Now, the point in which this is writing down the sounds, and you don't know what the meaning is, right? You're creating meaning as you go, and this is called minimal pairs. You're creating the minimal pairs, and you're looking at syllable structure. You're trying to, what is a syllable, the beginning of a syllable, the middle of a syllable, end of a syllable, cross syllables, and all that. So you're trying to figure out trying to apply meaning to it, okay? And this is where you begin to get what is a word, right? It's trying to figure that out. And give it meaning, right? Because some sounds have no meaning, like, that has no meaning in English, right? But it is a sound, right? And there are things you can do that create meaning, right? But they don't mean meaning, but they're sounds you can hear, right? So that has no meaning sound-wise in the language, except that it's clapping. So it has different type of meaning, but it's not in the language, right? It's regardless of the language itself, or it's at least recognizes as an acceptable sound, but not part of the language itself, okay? Now, when you get from phonetics to phonemics or phonology, you are beginning to apply the concept of these sounds as they are in the language. Are they recognizable? They're not. They're acceptable or not. Do they create words? Can they create words in the language or not? And this is where you begin to create these minimal pairs and stuff. And I'm not going to all the details here. I'm just going to explain how it happens. And then phonology is applying phonetics to a language, right? And each language has its own phonology. Each dialect has its own phonology. And then what happens too is when you have sounds that come together, like bl, B and L, right? B and L, and that depends if the B is the beginning of the word, because you can have an aspirated B, or you kind of middle of a syllable, you have a b, and the end of it, you can, and that's the 3 different types of b, right? So aspirated, tapped, and all this, right? So the b, when you put the l or r, you can br and bl, right? So those are different liquids here. R and L are different, and there are different types of R's and different types of L's, right? So I'm just trying to simplify this. When you combine these sounds together, they're going to create a new sound segment, okay? And then what happens is you've got some sounds that they come together, like s and sh and z and zh. Actually, those are separate sounds because the combination of the two sounds together creates a new phonetic, creates a new phoneme, okay? Now, when you get to the maximum combinations that happen in different languages, when it happens in this language, they're going to say, okay, the s is sound in a lot of languages, z is, and sh and zh, these are all different sounds in languages, right? And zh. So those are acceptable as a single symbol. Now you're going to start putting them together. And one sound you might have a voice sound. Think of optimistic, and you could, or abnormal, right? You've got sounds that are together. They're different sounds, b, n, or p, t, okay? You can have sounds that come together, and one sound will influence other sounds. So a voice sound may influence a voiceless sound. A voiceless sound may influence a voice sound. They'll conflate it, and the sound will change. It'll change its nature to follow the other sound, which usually happens to be the sound in front of it, okay? These are called, you got trailing sounds which will be influenced by a sound, okay? This is what happens in phonology. So phonology shows you in a language, when you've got one sound that influences another one, and they come together, and they're going to influence it, and it has a meaning, right? It has a meaning. This is not just, some like a fart. Farting is a sound, but it doesn't have any meaning, right? Or burping, right? It has no meaning, but it's just acceptable action. It's some kind of interjection somewhere, but it doesn't have meaning, okay? So I've used examples, but there's examples that exist that they do happen, but they're not something else, right? They're not part of the language itself. So what you're going to do is you're going to apply the meaning to it and say, okay, these sounds that do create segments in the language that people recognize as segments. And there might be sounds that don't exist in the language, and you'll write them off, okay? So a linguist, their job is to go through, write all the sounds down, listen to it, and then begin to say, okay, what is actually in the language? And you have these sounds that change, right? So you have to figure out, these are no longer the pure phonetic sounds. They're the adapted or adopted phonetic sounds based on the phonology of the language that the sounds go together. And then what happens is we call these phonological rules, where there are changes that are happening with the groups of the sounds come together. And this happens with consonants come together. This happens with consonants and vowels come together. This happens with the consonants, as at the beginning of the word, the end of the word, in the middle of the word, or the vowel, the type of vowel, all that. And so all this is kind of a mixed thing. And this is the difference between phonetics and phonology. So when people in user assistance and translation and interpretation and data science, all that, especially with speech-to-text systems and text-to-speech systems, because this is where it comes out the most, right? This is phonology, okay? I said this phonetics in the first video just to kind of simplify things. Now I'm going to say this is actual phonology because you're working on a text-to-speech or speech-to-text app for a specific language, right? And each language has its own phonology. So what you're going to be doing is beginning to work on the rules and how that's happening. Because you need to be able to, as a speech-to-text system, has to be able to recognize the speech, the phonology of the language to be able to create a coherent spelling system code that's written out, okay? There is no such thing, and I've been asked this at the Microsoft Research Lecture in 2010, does anybody have a speech-to-text phonetic transcription, right? No, because it's usually applied to a language, right? So maybe we can do this with GenAI. I want to create a phoneticizer, right? And create any sounds, just create just phonetic script for it. This is the reason why I feel linguists are important, right? Now, we can do some things and it's possible, but it's usually any of these speech systems and these dictation system, all that, they're applied to each language individually. So this is why I want to clarify, and as people that want to know, that anybody working in these types of systems, they're speech type systems, speech is involved somewhere. It's phonology. It's not pure phonetics. Pure phonetics is just the study of sounds. So that's a little bit more, and I don't want to go into all the different. I got plenty of videos on. Go up on my YouTube channel and you look up the whole thing on how to learn Dutch in a week, and I talk about how I applied field linguistics to doing with phonetics and phonology to Dutch, and I explain the details of that in one language, right? So but there's plenty of things out there on phonetics, phonology, and phonetics, and how to do it. And you've got acoustic phonetics, and you've got you got all kinds of different levels. And I don't want to go into that. That's not the detail here, to show you in these roles that we've been talking about what you're doing. So if you're doing anything speech related, and then you're doing phonology, and you're working on the types of phonological rules that show changes in a language, and you're applying that to a software system somehow, and you're applying it you're trying to make the orthography, you're cutting down a spelling system called an orthography. You're trying to create it down to, it becomes recognizable text by a human being that knows how to read and write in that language, and by a system that knows the language. It's just going to, like, spell checkers, grammar checkers, all that kind of stuff. And go back out, take the text, and then make it pronounceable out to speech. This is where phonology is important, because a text-to-speech system, you are applying that from the textual, the spoken, the written text in that language, and you want to make it come out as spoken speech for that language. Again, that's phonetics, or that is a phonology for a given language. So thanks for listening. If you got any more questions, you can reach out to me and we can discuss and debate more about the thing, but this whole concept, but at least that's an overview. Again, here is phonology in 12 minutes, right? So this is usually a semester course, okay? Full 12 weeks of courses going through and explaining all this. And there are different types and levels of phonology. I'm not going to go into all the types of all this, but there are plenty of books and videos about the topic. So thanks for listening, and reach out if you get more questions.